Hey, what's up? Hello. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and you are watching Kayla's Bookish Vibes. Today's video, I believe, calls for a small disclaimer. So these are not necessarily a list of books that I'm recommending to you because I have not read all of the books that I'm going to be discussing in today's video. And I do believe that you cannot recommend a book that you have not read. However, this is more of me sharing with you some books that were already on my shelves, that are already on my radar, that I'm looking to put on your radar. If you clicked on today's video, then you are specifically looking for mystery, thriller, and horror novels written by Black authors about Black characters. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I will let you know the books that I have read and what my star rating was for those books. And then I will also let you know the books that I have on my shelf that I haven't necessarily read just yet, but that I do eventually want to get to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first few books I have are for my girlies who consider themselves scaredy cats, right? You don't necessarily read thrillers because you think that they'll be a little scary. You definitely don't dabble in horror because you're just not into them. So these mysteries are going to be more up your alley. The first two books are part of a series. I do believe this is going to be a 3-book series, but these are cozy mysteries. So we have Dead Girls and Harlem Sunset. Both of these books are by Nikisa Afia. The covers are absolutely stunning. Absolutely love them. The third book is also just as pretty. I don't own that one because I really need to read these before I go ahead and purchase the third one. But I do know that these are just two very cozy murder mysteries. If you're into cozy mysteries, then I think you should check these out. Next, we have what I would consider a cozy mystery, but with a twist. Now, I have read this one, and it's called The Afterparty by Essie Author. I believe I gave this one 4 stars. It's very funny. There is so much comedic relief in this. Go into this knowing that it's not a thriller and that it's not like your typical cozy mystery, and I think you'll be just fine. If you go into this thinking you're going to get a thriller, you're going to be disappointed. But as long as you know what you're walking into, think of it as if Regine Sinclair and Kadeja from Living Single, if you know, you know. If those 3 characters were like in the early 2000s and they were co-workers and they came across a dead body. That is what you would get with this book. I absolutely loved it. And that's exactly what happened. We have 3 co-workers who are kind of like work friends, and you know, if you work in like an office setting, then you know you have like actual real life friends, and then you have work friends that you really only talk to and discuss work things with. Well, 3 work friends come across a dead body, and the dead body is that of their boss that they all hate, and they have to figure out what to do about this dead body. Highly recommend. It's very funny. Just go into it knowing that it is a funny, cozy mystery. Next, we have another book that I have not read yet. It is called The Mayor of Maxwell Street. I actually haven't read this book yet because I didn't realize it was so thick. This was my book of the month pick not too long ago. This book also takes place in the 1920s, but this is in Chicago. And I do know the main character of this book is like a socialite, and she's expected to get married and have kids, but she wants to be an investigative journalist. And I believe she's undercover as an investigative journalist, and she's trying to like uncover the mayor of Maxwell Street. I believe that the mayor of Maxwell Street is dibbing and dabbing in some nefarious things, and our main character has to uncover those things. So definitely check this one out if you're into mysteries. Next, I want to go into some YA thrillers. I believe some of these may be horror as well. If you're into thrillers and maybe you want to dabble in horror, but you don't want to like go all the way, YA is always a really good choice because they kind of like reel it in and it's not like over the top. So here are a few YA choices that I have. Their Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. Now, I really want to get to this one. In this book, we are following a young lady who has lost her scholarship to like a very prestigious school. And in order to get her scholarship back or to regain entry into this prestigious school, she has to win like a trial session. Their Vicious Games. She's being sponsored by a family who was like very well to do in the community and financially, and I believe that she ends up realizing the family has alternative motives and they mean more harm than they do good. So I can't wait to get into this one. I don't know why, but I really feel like I want to read this in the fall. But if you're looking for that type of book written by a Black author, then here's one that you can add to your TBR. Next, we have The Black Queen. This is by Jumada Emil. Now, in this book, I know that our homecoming queen is dead, and she was the first black homecoming queen of this high school, and we're following her best friend Duchess. Duchess believes she knows exactly what happened to her best friend. She believes that Tinsley has something to do with the murder of her best friend. Now, her friend was found in the old slave cemetery of the town. So as you can tell, race is going to play a lot in this book about what happened to the young lady who ends up dead. But I think we're following Duchess as she tries to uncover what happened to her best friend. This YA is not scary either. This is more of a sci-fi mystery. It's called Out of Body by Nia Davenport. I did read this one, and this one I do highly recommend. It's quite short and was really, really good. This one involves body hopping. So we follow two young girls who have newly become friends, and they are celebrating their friend-iversary. They decide to celebrate this friend-iversary with a home piercing. So they do their own piercings at home. After they do their piercings, they go to a nice little house party. Things get out of control, and one of them passes out on the lawn. When she comes to, she's alone, but she realizes that her conscious mind is in the body of someone else. The entire book, we're trying to get her out of this body and back into her own body and figure out what exactly happened. I really recommend this book. The pacing of this was very quick. As I said, it's a short book. It's not long at all. The pacing was very fast, and it keeps you entertained and interested the entire story. Highly recommend, especially for my scaredy cats. Next, 4 books. All of these are written by the same author, Tiffany D. Jackson. 3 of these books, I recently did a taste test here on my channel because I am trying to do better with reading the books on my shelves. So I did read all 3 of these books, and I will leave that video linked down below if you're interested in watching and getting more of my thoughts on these books. Allegedly is a psychological thriller, and I highly recommend this one. I gave this one 5 stars. The plot twist, the ride that you're on, you're going to read this book, and then immediately after finishing it, you're going to sit there and think, what the heck did I just read? And to me, that is the best feeling to have after reading a thriller. Monday's not coming. This is a tearjerker. You're going to need your triangles for this. You are going to need your triangles for this book. Okay, it's an emotional roller coaster. There's a lot of social commentary on what happens when little black girls go missing and what society as a whole does or refuses to do when that happens. Check the trigger warnings for this book, but I do also highly recommend this one. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. Last, we have Grown. I personally don't consider this a thriller, but it is tagged as a thriller, so I have included it in this list. This, in my opinion, is more of a coming of age story about a young girl who is just making some very poor decisions and who is being taken advantage of by a very sick man. So there is a disgusting age gap. There is a young girl who is being groomed and preyed upon by an older man. So trigger warnings for all of those things, but this is considered a thriller. Next, we have White Smoke. Now, this is one I have not read, and I do believe that this kind of crosses over into the horror genre because I do believe there's like a haunted house and possibly ghosts involved in this one. We are following our main character who has just moved to a new house because her mother relocated the family due to a new job. I believe with her new job, she gets a free house. However, this free house is not everything that it's cracked up to be. So this one also seems like a very October pick, and I do think I want to read this in the month of October. All right, we've covered YA. We've covered our mysteries for our scary girls. Okay, now let's just get into like the nitty gritty, the actual thrillers of it all. You cannot have like a thriller recommendation video or like thrillers written by Black authors without mentioning Essie Cosby. Okay, I discovered Essie Cosby last year, 2023, after reading Razor Blade Tears. 5 stars. Highly recommend that you read this on audio. Honestly, I probably would recommend that you read all of his books on audio. But Razor Blade Tears on audio, I even tabbed a few tabs as I was like reading it at my desk. Highly recommend. In this book, we are following 2 dads who have lost both of their sons. Their sons were married and both of them were killed. They had a non-existent relationship with both of their boys because they didn't agree with them being married. But after their death, they come together to figure out what happened to their sons and who killed their sons. This is action-packed. The social commentary is absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend this book, 5 stars. The next book I have is All the Cers of Bleed. This book was released in 2023, so this is kind of a new release. I really enjoyed this one as well. As you can see, I tabbed a few spots on this book as well. I really enjoy Essie Cosby's writing because I feel like he's able to incorporate social commentary in a way that just flows really naturally with the stories that he's writing. In this one, we have a black sheriff. He's the first black sheriff of this very small town. We start off with a school shooting. So I will say that, trigger warning for that, especially if you're a parent or if you're a parent with kids in school, trigger warning for that. But that's not the story. Like, it's a very small part of the story. It leads to the bigger plot and the bigger part of the story, which there is a killer on the loose and they believe it's a serial killer. And he is trying to uncover who this serial killer is as the black sheriff of this town. Blacktop Wasteland and My Darkest Prayer I have not read by Essie Cosby. But because both of these books were just spot on hits for me, 5 stars, both of them, I can't wait to get into the other 2 Essie Cosby books that I have. I do want to read his books on audio though, because I do know that the man who narrates his books narrates all of his books, all of his audiobooks. So I do want to read these on audio, but I needed the physical copy for my shelf. Next book I have is a new release. And when I say a new release, I mean this literally just came out today, the day that I'm recording this, which is Tuesday, April 16th. And it is called One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. This was on my anticipated releases list. I can't wait to get into this book. This is probably literally going to be the next book that I read. This book follows a main character who has dissociative identity disorder. Her name is Kenitra Nash, and her alter, so I'm believing her alter identities, have been given a second chance they can't refuse, a position as resident caretaker of a historic home. Having been dormant for years, which means her other personalities have been dormant for years, Ken has no idea what led them to this isolated Hudson River island, but she's determined not to ruin their opportunity. Cannot wait, because I want to see if the author did dissociative identity disorder justice. Like, how does she handle this mental illness and how does it play a part in this story? What I also really like is that we know this from the jump, right? It's not like going to creep up on us at the end of the book and be the plot twist. So we know that that's not the twist. So now I'm like, well, what is the twist? We know from the gate, like from the get-go, that this character has dissociative identity disorder. So what's going to be the plot twist? I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. Next, we have 2 books by the same author. Someone Had to Do It and Perfect Little Lives by Amber and Danielle Brown. I do believe that they are sisters. Now, I have read Someone Had to Do It. This is a thriller, but I would consider this more of like a fun thriller. Our main character is an intern. She's interning for like this fashion house, and she really wants to like work her way up in the ranks. She gets invited to like a party of the owner, like the fashion mogul, and she overhears some things that she shouldn't be overhearing. Well, what she overhears gets her into trouble. I really enjoyed the romance subplot in this book, which typically I hate romance subplots in thrillers. Like, if I wanted to read a romance, I would read a romance. If I'm reading a thriller, I want to read a thriller. But I do feel like this is probably one of the few thrillers I've read that had a subplot of romance that I think did it well, and it worked really well with this story. Highly recommend this book. The drama is really good in this book. It's not scary, so if you're a scary girl and you still want to read thrillers, I highly recommend this one. I think you'll really enjoy it. The romance subplot will probably actually really interest you as well. Now, I have not read their second book, Perfect Little Lives. I believe this was their debut novel, and this is their second book. This one is a new release. It just came out this year, and I really want to get into it as well. Simone's mother was murdered when she was 13. When her father was convicted, everything changed. So I believe her father was convicted for her mother's murder. Overnight, Simone went from living in a wealthy white neighborhood to scraping by. 10 years later, Simone has given up on her dreams and lives a quiet life writing book reviews, which I think I'm going to really enjoy, and getting serious with her boyfriend. But with a true crime documentarian hounding her for a scoop and a surprise encounter with her childhood next door neighbor, Hunter, the past seems set on haunting her. And after Hunter reveals that his father and her mother had a years-long affair, Simone is determined to find out who really kills her mother. So there sounds like there's going to be a romance subplot in this book as well. Maybe that's just something that they do. Can't wait to get into this one. Hopefully it's just as fun as this one was. Next, these 2 books have been on my shelf for way too long, and I keep saying I really want to get into them, and I really do want to get to them. I just keep forgetting about them whenever I'm in the mood for a thriller. So the first one we have is The Three Mrs. Greys, and the second book in this series is Truth, Lies, and Mr. Grey. Let's see, The Three Miss Greys. Noelle, Diamond, and Vanessa. Each woman believes that she is Cyrus Grey's only wife until he's nearly shot to death. Now, as he lies in a coma, the deceptions keep coming, unraveling everything that they thought they knew. I'm gonna leave it at that. Does that not sound messy? Does that not sound like the most perfect thriller to read? So I do really want to get into this. Next, we have a series of 3 books. All of these books are written by Shinora Williams. So we have The Wife Before, then we have The Perfect Ruin, and then we have The Other Mistress. Now, none of these books are connected. They're just all by the same author. And can we just really appreciate how all of these covers like complement each other so well? The only one of these 3 books I have read is The Perfect Ruin, and I did really enjoy this one. It's kind of like a I'm gonna steal your life type of thriller. It was pretty good. I read this one on audio, and I do recommend it on audio. I think I gave this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it enough to buy her other books. So these I can't recommend because I haven't read them, but I did really enjoy The Perfect Ruin, and I do recommend this one, especially on audio. This is like the perfect audio book to read while you're doing like house chores. If you have like a work from home job where you work at your desk and you can listen to audiobooks like me, perfect book to read or to listen to while you're working, that type of thing. But I do want to get into her other books. Okay, so this one, it seems that our main character has lost her job. She is quickly swept off her feet by a pro golfer who wants to marry her. Their relationship moves very quickly, and he says, listen, I will take care of you. So she says, okay. They move to Miami, and she takes up residence in this new mansion, I suppose, in Miami, and starts to discover some things. It's a thriller, so she probably discovers that she is not the first wife and probably won't be the last. But I'm interested because the way that Shinora was able to keep me interested in The Perfect Ruin, I know she knows how to do messy very well. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This book, The Other Mistress, I have seen mixed reviews of this book on TikTok. And this book, we are following our main character, who is a millionaire. She takes very good care of herself, but her husband is cheating on her. And she finds out that her husband is cheating on her, not with just one woman, but with 2. So her and the first woman that she found out, the first mistress that she found out about, team up to take out the second mistress. Again, I know from this book that Shinora knows how to do mess very well. So when I'm in the mood for a very messy thriller, this will be one that I reach for. Another book I have is They All Fall Down by Rachel Housel Hall. Now, I have read a book by this author, but I don't own it physically. I read it on Kayonse, which is my Kindle. And that book was called We Lie Here. And that one was more of a domestic thriller. So I do recommend that one as well. I think I really enjoyed that one because a lot of the domestic thrillers I read are typically written by white authors about white families, and obviously families across the board look different, but white families, which means white domestic thrillers, are going to look, smell, and sound different than black domestic thrillers. And We Lie Here was a domestic thriller that I enjoyed because the characters in the family closely resembled my own. So I decided to pick up another book by this author to see if I would like this one as well. We are following our main character, who is actually going on a getaway to like a trip in Mexico, to an island, I believe, with 6 strangers. Once the 6 strangers get to this island, they realize that they were lured there under false pretenses. And what I believe happens, which I'm not sure because I haven't read this book, I believe they all start getting picked off one by one. Sounds sinister, sounds creepy, perfect for a thriller. Now these next few books, I have about 4 more. These next few books are going to be my horror novels. Now, I personally am not necessarily into horror. I don't necessarily enjoy all the gore, although I have been reading some books that have included a little goriness, and I realized that it actually doesn't bother me nearly as much as I thought it would. But these are more historical horrors, and the horrific parts of these stories have to do more with racism or things that have happened in history, and not necessarily to do with like blood, gore, guts, and all that stuff. So the first one this one I'm definitely recommending. It's called The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve. I feel like I've been pronouncing her name wrong this entire time. Tanana Reeve, The Reformatory. I gave this book 5 stars. This is a chunker, okay? It is kind of chunky. You can read it on audio though, and the audio is just as good as reading it physically. I literally read it both ways. It's 570 pages. This was literally my first 5-star of 2024. I love this book. I think about this book. Sometimes I pull this book off my shelf and I just hold it and I flip through the pages and I go back to the characters to spend a little time with them. That's how much I love this book. If I could recommend only one book for the rest of the year to everyone that I meet, it would be this book, The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve. So in this book, we are following 2 children who are brothers and sisters. We have Rob, And then we have his big sister, Gloria. So Gloria and Rob, we find out very early on, this is not a spoiler, that their parents are not in the picture. Okay, so Gloria is left to defend and take care of her little brother. One day while Gloria is walking her little brother to school, they encounter a older white boy who is trying to hit on Gloria, and he's making like advances towards her that she does not want. And Rob, being her little brother, tries to protect her, and he kicks this white boy in the knee. Now, it's important that you know that these people are white and black because of the time period that this book takes place. This takes place in the 1950s in Florida. Obviously, in the Deep South in the 1950s is very racist. And the fact that this little black boy kicked a white boy in the knee, he gets a punishment for that. And his punishment is to be sent to the Reformatory school, which is not actually a school. It's pretty much a jail where horrible things happen to the boys at this school. Now, Rob is kind of soft. He has like a soft, tender heart, and him going to this school is scaring Gloria because she knows that he will not survive there. We kind of follow Gloria, and we also follow Rob as Gloria is trying to get her brother out of the school, and as Rob is just trying to survive the school. There are ghosts in this story. Again, the horrific parts of this story has more to do with the racism and the horrible things that happened in the school and less to do with the ghosts. But the ghosts definitely add a layer of entertainment, a layer of eeriness, a layer of sadness. You will cry in this book, but it's so worth it. It's so beautifully written. The characters are so well fleshed out. You love them. They are your little brother. They are your little sister, and you are heartbroken for them. Highly recommend this book. If you haven't, you should read it. And if you're scared by how big it is, then just listen to it on audio. I promise you'll enjoy it just as much. Next, we have When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. This book was read on audio during the fall months, so now my mind just says that this is a fall book. You can read this whenever though. I'm pretty sure my house was like smelling like cinnamon and pumpkin spice, and I probably had chili growing in the crock pot, and I was listening to this on audio while I was like cleaning or something. So now my mind just automatically attaches this book to the fall. You can read it whenever though. In this book, we are following a young lady who's going back to her hometown because her childhood best friend is getting married. Her childhood best friend is white and she is black. The white childhood best friend is choosing to get married in the Deep South on an old plantation. So problematic. But she goes anyway to support her best friend, and when she gets there, some things start to happen. And I don't want to ruin this story, but there are ghosts involved, and it's really good. I highly recommend check it out if you don't want to read it, which honestly this is like a book that you can read in a day because it's so short and the pacing of it is absolutely perfect. You won't want to put it down. Like, this is a book that you would read in one sitting. If you don't want to read it, listen to it on audio. Check it out on Libby or Hoopla, but I do recommend. Very eerie. And if you read it on audio, it's like some of the sound effects and some of the like music that plays is very eerie and will get you for sure. Okay, this book I have not read, but I'm definitely interested in, and I can't wait to get to it. It is called We Cast a Shadow by Maurice Carlos Ruffin. In this book, I believe there's like a sci-fi element because we're in the future for sure. And the main character wants his son to be white. And in the future, there is an ability to remove the melanin from your skin. And he wants his son to have this procedure because he believes that his son will have a better life if he does so. Does that not sound absurd? It does, and I want to read all about it. I want to see how this is done. I believe that there's a lot of satire in this book, so things are not to be taken literally. Obviously, there's a lot of satire going on, and I'm really interested in how the author achieves that. So I can't wait to get into this one. Those are all the books that I have. Some books I do recommend. Some books are just on my shelves and I wanted to put on your radar if you are indeed looking for a mystery, thriller, or horror novel written by a Black author about Black characters. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you were able to make a few lists of your own. If you did, leave this emoji to let me know, number one, you found something that you're interested in, and number two, that you made it to the end of today's video. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.